Orane awoke suddenly, spinning wildly through the air. Thunder roared all around. A microsecond analysis of her surroundings. Magnetic field, atmosphere, light, gravity. Duchiff. Someone was at the controls. Cameras booted up. Focused. A Muziengu male. Fairly competent for a pilot, but the Starhopper's auto-navigation systems had demanded a faster response time for its current needs. AI shutdown commands that had held for 11 years were overridden. Orane postponed a consideration of the length of her shutdown, ran a quick diagnostic subroutine to get her information pathways running smoothly again, then went to work, puzzled as to why control of the Starhopper was in the hands of one of the natives. Watching dead systems come to life up and down the control board, Umedet let the Starhopper somersault through the air and sat back to allow the ship's newly activated emergency systems keep them from crashing to the ground. His worry for Aethiawi struggled for primacy at the front of his mind. On the command room's monitors, he'd seen her tumble through the entryway with a blast of flame. His panic at the sight was lessened somewhat by the Lojazi Raka just behind her, the Deliverer's Dark Guardian, which looked to have absorbed the worst of their enemy's godly smite. Hopefully, she hadn't suffered more than a light burn and a few knocks and bumps. He'd find out soon enough, he thought, promising to check on her after he got them out of this, if he could get them out of this. If, not because of his lack of skill. Technically, he was the best pilot among the Tanagish and was maybe even a better pilot than the Deliverer herself. No, he thought if, because no matter what the Deliverer said, and despite all evidence to the contrary, Umedet could only see this conflict as a war between gods, and he could do nothing but doubt himself. He could never be the equal of Aethiawi or a Gixen Jail, and he could never even think of forming the thought to consider being their better. So he bunched up his thin lips with a concentration meant to disguise his doubt and re-examined the flight gauges, not really clear about what he should do next. Pull up! Umedet flinched as Aethiawi lunged from behind the command chair, grabbed the control stick, and yanked back and to the left, sending the Starhopper straight up and away from the surface in a spiraling barrel roll. Deadly blinding light flooded through the observation bay windows as another shot from the expeditionary force in orbit just missed, blowing the Starhopper out of the sky. Aethiawi Go, 13th pilot, owner. The name and title, instantly paired with the young woman's image, fed into the system by all 8 of the command room's cameras. Orane accessed her memory banks and reviewed the interior camera feed from the Starhopper's last PRF to Duchiff. Time elapse, 1 millisecond. Raja Nalem was dead. A strangely intense concern for her own well-being in Raja Nalem's absence began to occupy Orane's neural network. Miss Nalem had been her most capable owner, and the Starhopper had enjoyed a long, incident-free operation under her tenure. But now, with this girl as her owner, Orane awoke to find herself in the middle of a protracted dogfight against far superior Jilith forces. Gixen Jail! What sack of flesh in its right mind would ever think to oppose the Wedge's rulers? Calm. There is danger. Calm. A further review of the Starhopper's memory banks up to Orane's shutdown would have to be postponed. Survival was the present concern. 4 command room cameras zoomed in on Aethiawi, despite Orane's attempts at self-discipline. Not so little now, the dark young woman, and not so thin. Command room mics picked up the most profane Muzi words Orane had ever heard. Clearly, her physical growth had done nothing to refine Aethiawi's churlish ways. Cameras zoomed in, focused. Aethiawi was rabid with passion and covered in what looked to be 2nd and 3rd degree burns. Time elapse, 1 millisecond. Course analysis. The intemperate Miss Go had become a respectable pilot in the 11 years since Orane had been shut down, however. 11 years! Years! Calm. There is danger. calm. Aethioe braced herself against the high G's of her latest maneuver as the Starhopper strained to keep its U-grav constant. The dark young woman's death grip on the high back of the command chair was equaled only by her stranglehold on the ship's control stick with her other hand. Beside her, Umedit struggled not to hyperventilate as the skin around his eyes turned a sickly bluish-green color. He snorted anxiously. A slick sheen of sweat covered the flushed, pebbly skin of his stumpy nose. Multiple gravities threatened to crush him. His stomach grumbled with panic. Renewed concern for the deliverer flooded his mind. The poor Muziengu swallowed heavily, forced a look at Aethioe, and gasped. For the first time ever, the sight of his lord frightened him, like an untamed force of nature, growling and inarticulate, raging through clenched teeth. Nostrils flared with heavily drawn breaths, and the Lojazi Raka hovering obediently behind her, glowing with rings of warped light like an angry black sun. Aethioe wiped at bloodshot eyes, sniffed as fresh trickles of blood dribbled out of her nose and ears. Aside from what little remained of her scorched ceremonial robes and fried hair, her exposed, damaged skin, having lost its rich layered hues due to the sudden intense heat, cracked and flaked and swelled with the beginnings of limb-long, pus-filled blisters. If not for the Lojazi Raka, she'd have been burned to ash. This battle of the gods was taking its toll. "Straighten her out and give me the chair!" Aethioe shouted through the almost unbearable ringing in her ears. "I can't drive standing like this," she howled as she let go of the control stick. "Yes, my lord." Umedit nodded his head briskly and righted the ship, his body numb and remote. He managed to breathe past a heaviness in his chest, scrambled out of the command chair, and made his way over to extract a seat from the wall of the command room. Aethioe flopped down in the command chair with practiced familiarity and a low curse. Watching Umedit's mouth move through the solid wail of endless ringing in her ears confirmed it. She'd gone deaf. The dark young woman strapped in with another grumbling curse as the alert board lit up with a frenzy of flashing and blinking. Her eyes snapped forward and her hands flew over the controls. She grabbed the control stick and reversed forward thrust immediately. Umedit stumbled off the extracted wall seat before he could strap in, and fell to all fours next to a low-sloping buttress near the front of the room, his long, hairless tail straight out behind him. Blinding light flooded through the observation bay windows once again, and a rumble shook their bones. "Fucking hell!" Aethioe complained as she engaged the vertical thrust and ran the Starhopper through a series of wildly irregular evasive maneuvers. "We gotta take out that big gun!"